from StarFish. We're gonna follow the journey on how you arrived here and all your medical device experience you've had in the past.
Okay, well, sounds good. So, I'm Nick Allan. I'm with, I know we just got to meet here. I'm with StarFish Medical, and I am the functional manager for the bioservices group that we have here at StarFish. A little bit for your viewers about StarFish first, I guess, before I for myself, and then we can just talk med tech development in general. So StarFish Medical is a medical device engineering consultancy, and the thing that's a little bit different about that from other development firms is that we develop medical devices for hire. So we don't have any of our own products. What we'll do is we offer medical device engineering services for hire. So if someone has an idea for a medical device, they'll come to us and they'll say, we want to make this a product. And that's our spend. Anybody, right? So somebody from off the street wants to, hey,
have a great idea.
I really hate this type of tongue depressor. I've got a new one. Happy to talk to those folks. To Fortune 500 med tech companies. They have a project or something they need our expertise on, and we'll come and do that work for them. And so our expertise, we have a number of engineering disciplines, I guess, if you will. We have mechanical engineers. That's kind of the bulk of the engineering. We have electrical engineers. We have firmware engineers, software engineers. We have an optics specialty group, which is really cool. We have industrial designers. We have human factors engineers, and I know you're here talking about biomedical engineering. I'll tell you about a course that actually we offer at the University of Victoria here. Specifically,
people from here go
here and teach that course. So I'll tell you about that if we've got a moment to do that. We've got we have a computational fluid dynamics group, which is a sub-discipline of the mechanical engineering group now. Really exciting stuff on using complex, beyond my capabilities anyway, complex mathematical models to look at fluid dynamics and things of that nature. What am I missing here? We've got a quality assurance and regulatory affairs group, and that's really a core fundamental requirement. Yeah, absolutely. And that's really one of the strength of our organization and what clients come to talk to us about.
So you guys don't subcontract the regulatory affairs, you deal with it like head on.
Yeah, so we have, I think there's about, and we're growing all the time, so I think the head count's around 12 folks now in that group, and so they'll come in and do, help out with the, making sure everything's in the regulatory framework that's required. And of course we're doing med device development, so it's under ISO 1345. And we'll have some of our regulatory affairs folks will help, craft out the path for our clients to help, get the
full strategy, like which country and everything.
Yeah, and depending on the sophistication of the client, because I talked to you about a range of clients, somebody
from the guy from the street and the Fortune 500
to a Fortune 500 company. There's going to be a range of experience we try and match to help that out. Who else do we have that I'm missing? We have software engineers to talk about. Oh, and of course my group, the bioservices group. And we have a group of, it's an exciting group where we're a blend of engineers and scientists, right? So you talk about biomedical engineering, and I've found that to be kind of an interesting, it's an interesting discipline, right? Because you usually go in, at least as I've seen it here at the University of Victoria, where you start as an engineer and you have a stream, like I'm going to be a mechanical engineer, I'm going to be an electrical engineer, and I'm going to have the biomedical,
which is like a really nice mix of everything at the end of the day.
Absolutely. Well, and so one of the fears that I have often had with programs like that, where it's a mix, right, is sort of like, and I use a bicycle analogy, right?
Okay.
So you've got a mountain bike and you've got a road bike. One's really, really good at doing the road, but you don't want to take it off on the gravel. One's really, really good at the gravel, but you're going to lose any sort of road race. Well, we'll put a hybrid, and so it's not really good at either. That's a problem, right?
That's really
and I'm often afraid about that with biomedical engineering, right? Because I'm going to go in as a mechanical engineer, but I'm going to flavor it with
a bit of electrical and a bit of like software.
Or worse, I'm going to flavor it with a bit of biology. I'm not going to be really good in either camp. And so I think it can be done correctly, right? Yeah. But you have to be careful about that because you don't want to end up being something that's not good at anything.
Absolutely.
So that's a no disrespect to that. I think it's a great concept, right? Like the hybrid concept is fantastic. In fact, I'm a full disclosure, I'm a microbiologist by trade. I'm not an engineer, right? So biology, does that in general, right?
Yeah.
When you look around us, it's not, things aren't subsected that way. It's usually a combination of things. And so it's a natural fit, it's a good thing, but you have to be cautious in doing it. And that's why we started the bioservices group in general, actually, is we wanted to, when we're talking to clients, we found that there's, some of our clients were scientists, right? That were developing an assay or a way to grow cells, and then they want to get.
So they were really into to go back to your analogy, into the road, and you guys can like help them get into all the other terrains that they were less comfortable.
Yeah, fair enough. So to take that bicycle analogy, so we had, if we're talking to a scientist, right? They know that assay or that science inside and out, and they need to integrate with an engineering company, an engineering consultancy, to make that a product, right? To productize that. And so that's where my group comes in, is that we have a lot of scientists who've also trained as engineers, and we help bridge that gap, if you will, between the really interesting science and
how to make it into a product.
That's the key, right? And that really is what StarFish is all about. It's not, doing the sexiest engineering or the sexiest science or whatever. It's actually making a product at the end of the day, something that's actually usable and benefits, in this case, med tech development, right? So when you, I guess, putting on our career navigation hat, right? If you were to walk around the building with your camera here and talk to all the different engineers and the folks in the groups, to say, hey, what motivates you, right? And I bet you about 90% of them would say making a product that's gonna help society, right? That would probably be the goal, and that's really what StarFish is all about, is making really
a product
cool
that will
products.
help.
That's right, absolutely.
So you were saying that everyone has this making a product. Do you think they came to StarFish with that mentality, or you guys have like a culture that makes it that would everyone here realize how important the making a product that will benefit like on the healthcare and everything?
Sure. Yeah, and there's, I can't speak to everybody's motivation, right? I think, again, if you were to go around with your camera and survey everybody, I think doing interesting things, right, is probably the reason why you get into engineering or science or literature or playing music. I want to learn, and that's cool. That's interesting to me, right? That's cool. And then so you get into that, and then as you explore, what's cool, I want to share that with the world, or I want to make that cool thing that I'm really interested in available to everybody. Sort of like creating YouTubes or whatever.
Yeah,
right? Like,
it's exactly
this is I'm going on a road trip. I'm interviewing people doing different things. That's cool, and I want to share that. I want to create and do that for the world. And that I think is the essence of what StarFish is a product development company. I want to do my cool thing and make it a product that I can share. Maybe that's
that's really nice. Yeah, no, I've been faced with a lot of confidentiality.
Sure.
That was frustrating when you're working on something that is awesome. It's gonna be life-changing, but you cannot share it. How does that work at StarFish? Because you guys are also...
Great question. Yeah. So exactly right. So we do lots of cool things for hire, and the reason why companies want to develop something is to make money, right?
Yeah.
And then, so if we were to if you do something for somebody and then go and share that with somebody else and it scoops them, that's a pretty career limiting move.
Yeah.
So the way engineering consultancies work or contract research organizations work is you do everything under contract, right? So every client that comes to us and says, I want to do a piece of product development work with us, we enter into a contract, and part of that contract is a confidentiality agreement where we will create things.
These are the limit of what we can and what we cannot.
What we can do, and there's something called freedom to operate, right? So if we've developed, say there's two companies developing catheters just for fun, and company A has come up with this great antimicrobial coating. I'm going to go use antimicrobial stuff because I'm a microbiologist.
Absolutely, let's go.
So they come up with this amazing technology that keeps microbes from growing on it. And this other company comes to us and they say, hey, we want to develop an antimicrobial catheter as well. Great, but we just can't use anything that we've developed for, catheter company A
To the B.
to B, right? So that's
So you're gonna have to innovate.
we have to innovate. So that's so as a microbiologist and as a scientist and an engineer, wow, that's so exciting. We get to invent something totally different. That's really great. And I said a word there, it's invent, right? And what we do is it's really cool. My kids often ask me, like, Dad, what do you do for a living? And I'm like, I'm an inventor. I get to invent things for hire. I'm like, well, that's really cool. And how that works for StarFish is we, getting back to your confidentiality piece, is a company will come to us and say, we're working on this thing, we need you to invent something.
That remove the microbes.
That's remove the microbes or whatever it's gonna be. And we do that for hire, and that company owns that invention, and we assign, my name goes on that patent, we invented it, it's a new thing, a new technology that's fantastic. And that company, because our interest is to get paid to do interesting work, right? What the company does with it after that, that's their business. And
so it's the end of the contract, end of the thing, and
that's exactly right. So we develop that piece for them, and so it's not exactly the end of the thing. We work with that company as long as they want to engage with us. And again, ultimately, every day we come to work, we want to make that thing a product. So coming up with a great idea is just one part of that journey. It's then making that into a product. You talk to Garrick, who introduced us and walked around, and Garrick's part of a systems engineering group, and part of that part of his job is to make sure that that thing that we invented actually meets the specifications and can become a product. It's one thing to come up with an idea, any idiot can come up with an idea. It's making it a product that's
a safe
functional,
one.
a safe one, right? That's the key. So that's the spirit of what we do. So it's all of that coming together, come up with a great idea, and then bring that all the way through to something that makes a difference at the end of the
Gonna
day.
make a difference.
Yeah.
So you said you're a microbiologist.
Mhm.
Were you working also for this kind of environment before, or were you like?
Yeah. Before, we'll put on our
Career
career path story. So when I went to university, I was really interested in biochemistry originally, because everything. If you ask a biochemist, everything is biochemistry.
Yeah.
If you ask a chemist, everything's chemistry. But anyway, so biochemistry is amazing, right? Like we're breathing, we can take in oxygen, and as a terminal electron transports, as it move electrons around, we're pushing electrons here. It's amazing. It's amazing, right? That we can do that. And slowly, going to university, I wanted to study that, and in class, studying the Krebs cycle and all these different pathways, it's fascinating. And then I took an introductory microbiology course, and I was like, oh, it's fascinating. Look, these things that have been around for 3.5 billion years, do all of that as just everyday life, right? They've been doing that forever. Like, this is amazing. Why would I study biochemistry if I can study microbiology? I want to learn how to.
So right there, you're already like.
That's right. That's navigating the path.
Navigating what you wanted to.
This is really cool, right? I can do this. And then, as having gone through school doing microbiology and learning about that, I took a graduate degree and a master's degree at the University of Guelph. And I did that. I had a supervisor, Terry Beveridge, who unfortunately passed away about 10 years ago now. And he was really interested in doing transmission electron microscopy, and that's looking at how these organisms interact with different things. And my job is to be able to grow them up and take a look at how these things work and understand the minutia of actually membrane chemistry, which to most people isn't all that exciting, but it was interesting to me at the time.
Yeah.
And where I was struggling with that after leaving graduate school was to parlay that into a career, right? It's kind of like the story of I was telling with making a product. I want to get up and do interesting things. That was what was interesting to me, but I need to make.
That was cool, but
that needs
to do something
to
out of it.
Yeah, somebody, right? So I ended up going to moving out to Alberta, to Calgary, and working with some researchers at the University of Calgary. And they started a little contract research organization, so doing contracts for hire, right? So,
right at the university.
Right at the university.
Nice.
So parlaying that knowledge, that interest of doing something into something that would have a paycheck, so I can have some food at the end of the day, right? And so I did some work with that company for a number of years, and that was working specifically on biofilm growth, which as a microbiologist is kind of interesting. If you look at a biology textbook, right, you think of microbes, you see that there's that picture of like a little sphere, and it's got little decorations coming out of it. It's kind of floating around in
we're having
a
everywhere.
flask, right? That's the common perception. But in nature, right? If you look at the back of your toilet tank, you know that it's all slimy. Or if you're fishing and you've been traveling to the Yukon and stuff, and perhaps you saw some rocks and when wading through it, and you slip on a rock, that's a film, right? It's a biofilm. That's how nature works, right? It grows as a biofilm, not single cell things floating around in a soup,
I see.
right?
Well, yeah, I see what you.
Yeah,
I slipped on it in the river.
Sure, right? So that's how nature is, and so that was a really interesting thing for me. Like, oh man, that's how nature works. Why are we studying things, floating in isolation? That's not how life works. So the company that I ended up working with was studying biofilms. I got to work with a gentleman named Bill Costner, who just since passed as well, and he was kind of considered one of the fathers of biofilm research. And one of the interesting things about growing biofilms is that you need a surface for that to grow on. Now fast forward to med devices, right? Well, med devices typically like artificial hips, catheters, that sort of thing. That's a surface that we're putting in a body, and
it needs something to you.
And then you got something growing on there. That's really bad. That's really bad news, right? And so that became a really interesting value proposition for me. I went to school and I learned how to grow microbes on surfaces, and I could do that really, really well and understand how that worked. And I could translate that into something that was meaningful for the clients. Catheter manufacturers, artificial hip manufacturers, heart valve manufacturers, they all wanted to understand how those organisms grew on that surface so they could build a better medical device to prevent that from happening.
This would affect all of the medical device.
That's
world.
right.
Yeah, no, this is
absolutely. So that was kind of the beginning of my career path. So from there, working with that company, I got really fascinated doing that. I ended up setting up my own company to do that type of work. And I had another partner. We set up a company in Alberta doing this biofilm work, and he was a large animal veterinarian, and that was great because we were able to translate so in vitro, so stuff in the lab, into animal models, and that was super powerful for two reasons. Number one is, you're doing something synthetically in the lab. It's kind of close, but it's not quite.
No, it's not quite like catting something. Is not the same as the real deal.
That's exactly right. So the engineer, catting is not quite thing. You still got to make the thing. So then translating that into an in vivo model, something where it was you're in an actual living system, that made a lot of sense, and that was really a powerful tool when you're talking to regulatory agencies like the FDA or Health Canada or the European Union. And so our company had a bit of specialty around that. That company has since gone on to focus on animal welfare products and doing things for large animal work, which is
this is something you can be really proud of. Yeah, this is really cool.
I have a whole other story to tell about that. But fundamentally, that company is doing quite well. Is still in Alberta, and my family we wanted to move out west here in beautiful Victoria.
That's fantastic here, yeah.
And my wife actually found you mentioned the YouTubes and things like that about StarFish, and said, oh man, this looks like.
So your wife found about StarFish?
Exactly. She said, look
wow.
at this company. This looks like exactly what you like to do. Why don't we go introduce ourselves? And we moved up here and introduced ourselves, and really loved what StarFish was doing, and fortunately I became a part of the StarFish team, and been working with it ever since. 7 years now.
7 years.
Yeah.
So in those 7 years, you've been working on how many projects, or how does it work here? Is it
that's a great question.
Such a specific specialty that you have? Are you more like a reference for a lot of projects, or are you dedicated to specific projects full time?
Yeah, so that's a great question. So when I came here, so StarFish now is quite different than when I showed up here 7 years ago. So StarFish now has over 200 engineers between Victoria and our Toronto office, and all these wonderful disciplines in this bioservices group, which just started about 5 years ago. I'll tell you about that. So when I came here, there was about, I would say, 40 of us in the building kind of next door that we were just at. And at that time, StarFish was really starting to expand, lots of bigger projects, and they were bringing in, they've always had project management, but in a dedicated way, bringing in a project management group. So that was that list of all the different disciplines. That's the one I missed. I was trying to remember what it was. Project management.
5 years ago, that's when they said, let's make a team of project managers?
Yeah, it was actually, in fairness, it's a bit before that, but have a real dedicated a real dedicated entity where this would be a separate group that would help, facilitate the story.
Get your mind off the project management, do your thing more than...
Exactly, allow the engineers to do their thing and help navigate this product development story. So I came in at that time when we were really starting to bring this program management group in. And frankly, so when I came, my wife.
Yeah, wait,
so at the first meeting.
It's so cool.
Yeah, right. And I show up, and at that time, look, I'm a microbiologist. I'm not an engineer. This is an engineering company. How do we do this? And talking with StarFish, like, well, you've run a company before. Project management seems to be a thing that you could probably do if you've done that. While we work on this. And at that time, we happened to take on a project that was also looking at the diagnosis of SIBO, which is small intestinal bacterial overgrowth.
You were like,
hey, this works so great. It's a good timing. So I came in at that time to do project management. Again, the project management group of StarFish, and we had this a couple of projects doing small intestinal bacterial overgrowth, and I helped basically explain this bioservices thing. Do that transition between the engineers who are developing the detection system and then be able to grow bacteria on surfaces and show how to do that. So that translational piece.
Were you guys doing this here?
We did it here. We actually ended up partnering with the University of Victoria to use the
lab.
It's called the CL2 lab space. Of course, if you look around here, there's offices and electronics and firmware and things like that. There's in big batches of bacteria growing.
Yeah, that's what I was wondering.
And so so we did that at the university, and actually our lab in Toronto, our facility in Toronto, we have an ISO 7 clean room and a fully certified CL2 facility. And of course we've grown up quite a bit since then, and of course doing some work around COVID-19 diagnostics, as you can imagine, in that facility. So that was the origin. We helped out a couple of clients in that space, in that work.
So for that specific intestinal bacteria thing?
Yeah, we did a couple of really neat projects. One of them was this is like science fiction land, but we did a thing where you could take a capsule. It's fairly large.
Entering, I saw. Is it like the one that is against the wall?
That's right.
Wow.
Yeah.
Okay.
So there was basically swallow a robot, right? And you
Yeah.
can figure out where the heck it was in your body. Open a little door, take a sample, analyze that sample, and transmit it out to a wristwatch, and then you
evacuate
it goes away. So that was the first project I started. And I was like, "Are you kidding me? This is Star Trek, man!
Really
this is fantastic." Sick. Yeah, it was really sick. It was amazing. So my job in that project was to basically develop the assay. So so Garrick, who you met, his job was part of doing the testing and the firmware analysis and making sure that robot could figure out where the heck it was, right? And open the door and take a sample. My job was so it takes a sample, count the bacteria, right? That was
you can do it right there?
Right there, real time,
Wow.
real time. So that was my job, and so I had to build a little team around doing that, and we did that successfully, and that's a cool
that
thing.
is. I thought you would, after the evacuation,
Yeah.
you would take it and then analyze, but
Yeah, so that was the concept, right? So this is the cool thing about product development, right? So the client came to us and said, "This is what I want to do, make it happen."
this is
right. So that's the solution we came up with was and it's really cool. You see, I don't know what the camera can catch, but there's whiteboards all around. We always have whiteboard pens and things like that, and literally a bunch of engineers sitting around a table and a whiteboard going, "Oh man, how are we going to figure out how to do this?" That's the job. Can you imagine?
And it's the best thing. Like,
it's
getting paid to do that is
absolutely. It's amazing, right? It's an amazing job. So that's what we did that
That's
for.
how you started, or was it the first project, that one?
That was one of the first projects that I really dug into in earnest. There was a couple other ones that we did some work on, but that was kind of like the big
kickoff.
The real.
It must have taken a lot of time too, I guess, to make that.
Oh yeah, that's not something that happens over.
Yeah,
it's
no,
a
it's
multi-year project, right? As you can imagine.
And is it now commercially?
So we got it to. So this is the thing about product development, right? It's StarFish is really good at what we call phase zero. So this concept, coming up with an idea and making it getting it to what we call an
concept
alpha.
that is like you prove the concept that it works, or
Yeah, so kind of getting those fundamental things. Can we make this thing a reality? And getting it to an alpha. What that means in our language is alpha gets to do a clinical trial phase where we can see if this thing is going to actually do what it says it's going to do, and then doing later refinement where it becomes sometimes do a second spin on it. You call it an alpha 2, and it's a little bit more refined. You translate that to what we call a beta unit, which is 99% of the way there, like something that you would see in a hospital, and then you get into pre-production units and then manufacturing. You had a bit of a tour here. We have a small manufacturing facility here in Victoria and one kind of an equivalent one in Toronto. We do mostly these preclinical things. We do some commercial units as well, but really you transfer that to what we call a CM or a contract manufacturer, and they just crank those things out like nobody's business. Just a factory making.
Is it easy? Was it easy, like to do that?
So that thing you can imagine is like is a little robot has lots of little moving parts, and the science behind it is brand new, right? And so where that is at, it's still currently is still at the we call it the clinical phase, the preclinical, well, it's the clinical phase where we're actually trying to get this thing to
get more and more population, like randomized and everything.
Exactly. So there's clinical trials underway to evaluate its performance, and then when you, it's interesting, right? In the regulatory environment, regulators are mostly interested in two things. Number one is safety, right? Is this thing going to hurt anybody? So that's job number one for a regulator, which makes sense. Job number two is that we are not making any sort of false claims, right? You don't want to be a snake oil salesman, right? So basically, whatever you say that product's going to do, you have to prove and verify that's true, and then that's basically the job of the regulator: safety first, and then making sure that those claims are true. And so in the case of that device, right, you're going to swallow it, and you have to figure out what subset of the population has that disease to begin with, and design a model that's going to prove that thing is accurate as the current standard of care. Standard of care, by the way, for that particular device is you have to do an endoscope, take a jejunal sample, take that out, take it back to like my lab, basically spot plate it and see how many bacteria are there. So
that's how you compare.
That's how you compare it. So you say, hey, so I swallowed the capsule. It said, yep, I have bacteria there, and then you compare that to somebody takes a sample out, spot plates, it goes, yep, there's bacteria there, and that's the gold standard.
So yeah, it's not as easy to do that.
So designing that clinical trial is actually tricky. My group has a hand in doing that as well for different indications, but it's interesting stuff. Yeah, so it's cool. So anyway, where they're at right now is they're making hundreds of those and then doing the trial work, as I understand it.
Really cool.
Yeah. So it's super cool. Yeah. Someday.
That's what everyone wants to work on, new projects. You know, when they join the company, they want to work on the new project, but they don't realize that it takes so long to develop a product that you might join in the middle, sometimes near the end, but we still need help at all the stages.
Absolutely. Yeah, and everybody bringing their special sauce or their piece to it, right? It's really like building a house, right? You get the guy puts the roof on, and then you put the tables and stuff in, and electrical, and
it's a teamwork.
Exactly right. Yeah, making a product at the end of the day. So that's that's kind of the journey there, and then so back to this bioservices group. We did that project, and that worked out. That was kind of the first time where we did in-house the biology, combining that with the engineering. And the founder and CEO of StarFish, Scott Phillips, at the end of that project came to me and said, "Oh man, that worked out great. Can we do that again?" And we set up this bioservices group to do exactly that, right? To help this translational piece. And I brought in a couple of other scientists that work in cell and gene therapy, and another great addition to the team in Toronto, Dr. Lorenzo Gutierrez, and he does microfluidics. And microfluidics is, as the name implies, really small scale fluidics and moving things around. And that's not really a discipline unto itself, or it is a discipline unto itself, and it's what we consider kind of a tool to help implement some of these other things that we're doing, which are, helping some advanced development work.
I don't know anything about all of this, and for me it makes it so difficult to imagine what kind of products you can do with it, but that's a really good strength that StarFish has, because you guys are collaborating every day, so you can bounce ideas back and forth and like.
Yeah, and so to your point, I mean, one of the strengths of StarFish, right, is having all of these internal resources. So you imagine you're in that whiteboard session, and you've got a guy from writes the firmware, another guy does the software, a human factors person, somebody who specializes in microfluidics. We can come up with some pretty far out there solutions to problems. Right?
And we have to call microbiologists in my previous work, and I think there's great value added depending, and as you mentioned, like we had to fight like microbes on all surfaces.
Yeah,
so
right.
I can see that why so many departments are needed, like to have a really versatile medtech company.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, and one of the strengths, again, we'll talk in the scope of future. If you're a future biomedical engineer and want to get into that program, one of the interesting things about StarFish, we hire a number of biomedical engineers, of course, and it's really having that be able to, I guess, bring in the disciplines, right, the science and the engineering, putting that together to make a product. That's the key.
Yeah. Thanks, Nick.
Okay.
I don't know if you had anything that you wanted to share about your experience here, or anything that surprised you that you didn't expect when you arrived at StarFish, and that you didn't expect from the medtech world.
Well, one of the interesting things that happened along that journey, right? So I told you about we're using the labs at the University of Victoria. That was a fantastic relationship, doing that. But what came along with that was an ask from the Faculty of Biomedical Engineering, actually, to offer a fourth year.
It's true,
course,
yeah, that, of
right?
course, yeah.
And so we came up with this course, and the course that we ended up offering was really cool. It's we used our human factors group here at StarFish, and we for the biomedical folks in fourth year, we have this human factors in medical device engineering, and that's a course that we offer at the University of Victoria, and it's actually now
this is so rare. Like I'd never heard about it.
Right?
No. It's until I went into the medtech world, and I was like, I guess it's important to know how they got it.
Oh,
it's probably useful for any kind of product.
Any sort of product, right? Like, because as the name implies, it's human factors, right? So we're all humans, and if you're going to buy a product, well, guess what? I'm a human. Like, this is size so that it fits in my hand, and look, I've got fingers, and oh boy, it's got a finger holder, so it's not so hot. Because I'm only at 37 degrees C, and I like to drink 40 degrees C stuff, so I got to keep it separated. Like, that's intuitive,
everywhere,
right? But if you don't, like, as you get into more complicated things, if you don't consider the human factors in it, then you have problems. So one of the interesting things that we did with this course was that rather than have one instructor just kind of teach the course, and this is how human factors is done, we ended up bringing in experts from all of the human factors team. I want to say there's about 10 members in here. Yeah. So at each of the human factors and industrial design engineers come and present a lecture, right? And whatever gets them out of bed in the morning, and really exciting, right? And we have a really cool, that group is everybody here is cool, but that group has some really cool backgrounds in general. So one of the folks, for example, used to design cockpits for via rail, right?
Wow.
Like where the brakes are and all the rest of that stuff, and then translating her experience into med device design is super cool. It's an interesting perspective. And so having that translate out and be able to bring that to fourth year biomedical engineering students is super cool. And then even with that great subset of folks that we have here, I actually also went out into the local community. And so what I tapped on was VHA, so that's Vancouver Island Health Authority, and a couple of folks from that group, sort of similar, I think, to that interview you did up in the north. One of the gentlemen that came to present there was talking about medical device human factors failures that they have seen when they brought technology.
Wow.
And one of the lectures, it was one of my favorites. He came and he showed this picture of an IV set, right? That because of the human factors on it, it wasn't quite right, and that person had hooked up the flow incorrectly, and the IV fluid bag was filled with blood, right? Because it was on suck instead of deploy.
It happened to me as a patient.
Oh, no way!
Yeah.
Yeah, see?
It's And it can be really dangerous.
Yeah,
Like
absolutely. Yeah, no kidding. It's brutal. So that was shocking to me, right? That device was able to make it out into the wild, and there it is. So
yeah. Oh
Yikes.
wow! I am one of the. I think it's great that the industry get more involved into the university for many reasons. Like
Sure.
we get better, we get more ready to go into the industry,
Right.
and also you guys can also spot the good talents, the guys that are motivating the class, and hire them. So it's a win-win situation.
Right.
So
Absolutely.
it's really cool that you guys. And how does it work? Like, is it on the StarFish payroll, or do you know how they make it? Like to give the course?
Yeah, so all the so when you go and you do that as an employee, like we're paid as StarFish employees, and there's no
Is it on their free time, or is it like?
Yeah, so there's some like it's always in the evening, right? So it's kind of off hours when you're presenting it, but it's a
There's a compensation already.
That's my I have my salary as part of my thing, and I go and do it. And it's from a company's perspective, I'm often amazed, right? Having set up my own company, it's like, man, sponsoring a course at the university is not really doesn't align with the bottom line, but it's
an investment.
It's an investment in the future, as you say, and certainly something that it's an investment too for employees in that. Part of your job description is going out making a product and then conveying that in a way that is acceptable to students. Like you can convey along, hey, this is a really complicated thing that I'm doing, and then distill that down into something that makes sense, that a student understands and can take that and parlay it into a product, and that makes sense.
I'm sure that all the employees are also like feeling great about sharing all this and like giving the course.
I think when it's done, yes, at the time, like, oh man, I gotta go. I just spent the last 8 years in school. Like, I gotta go back and do another thing. No, it's crazy, but no, it's good. Everybody enjoys it.
I think that's gonna be the last question.
Sure.
In those past 7 years, was there something? Let's say the one I say is the magic wand. What would you like to see fixed, either in StarFish or in the medtech world? What was it? Something that bothered you that you like? Oh, I cannot do this anymore, or I cannot see what a wasteful thing that you see in the medtech world. Can you think of something that?
Yeah, I think one of the the biggest challenge for the medtech community in general, right, was and this is something that was been really brought to the fore in the last 2 years, right, because of the pandemic. So one of the biggest hurdles to med device development is the regulatory pathway, right? Very, very complicated, very long timelines. If you think about it from the developer perspective, right? So I'm a company, I've got X number of dollars.
A nice product.
I've got a great idea, and I've got this amount of money, and I've got to get it to product to get it out, make it a product so I can sell it,
Yep.
right? So I can recoup my cost. If that timeline or the regulatory hurdles are too long,
You will never see
the
the
money
market.
will never see the light of day, right?
Yeah.
And so one of the interesting things about, and I'm not being negative about the regulatory process. Imagine your job, right, is to make sure that the product that goes on the market, like that IV
The responsibility,
set, right?
yeah, no,
You're responsible to make sure that is safe and what the claim is true.
you don't want to botch it. You don't want to go too fast, yeah.
Right? That, like, human lives are at stake. So I totally get that. However, there are ways to do things more efficiently, and one of the things that the pandemic, I think, has taught us. So it's a horrible thing. Lots of people have died. It's been horrific for lots of folks, but there's a few silver linings to it. And one of the silver linings is that we and StarFish did this as well. We made we did a ventilator program for the Canadian government. They contracted us to do it. We did it in incredible work. The whole company got involved and did this. Made ventilators available for the Canadian population. Thank goodness we didn't need any of those things.
Yeah.
It was great.
But it's beautiful.
It was great that we were able to come together and do that. And the cool thing for me was the regulatory response. So there was under the Emergency Use Authorization Program, where we had to condense things because, like, man, the whole population need a ventilator. This is terrible. How do we make sure things are done safely? But what sort of things can we streamline, make more efficient to get that gap from idea to product shorter, right? and without jeopardizing fundamentally safety.
Yeah.
Right, and then making sure that everything else is intact. So we were able to, in that time, in the last 2 years, we're trying to get these things out the door. Do we really need to meet in person to do that? No, we can do that over the thing. Do I really need to have that hard copy signed in triplicate and delivered to you?
So you saved on transport?